Have you ever felt rage that then compelled you to say or do something, and then later felt embarrassed by your own behavior? Or worse, you suffered consequences that led to you being fired, loss of a friend, or arrested? That was your shadow in action. And according to Carl Jung, if we cannot work with our own shadow and recognize and manage our own shadow, the human species is in trouble. And I'm going to share how I was able to integrate my shadow for the most part. And those of us that experienced childhood trauma or mistreatment seem to have a more active shadow than most people. And the reason why is because, like when I grew up, I was bullied and demeaned, and no one protected me. No one stood up for me. And so in order to compensate for that, my shadow emerged. It developed to then stand up for me and protect me. And if you know your shadow aspect, it's often triggered when someone's trying to take advantage of you or someone else, or bully you or someone else, trample on your values, and then the shadow comes up. And what's the shadow say when it comes up? Let me at them. Let me at them. I have the rage for this. I want my pound of flesh, etc. But as you become an adult, you begin to notice that the shadow's reaction can be a little over the top, beyond what is warranted in the situation. And that's where the embarrassment comes in. So what I began to do when my shadow was triggered was notice it, become aware. And it's incredibly advantageous when you're working with your unconscious content, whether it's the shadow or the wounded inner child, to treat it as if it is its own distinct entity. That enables you to then be conscious. I'm looking at my shadow. I'm interacting with my shadow. Because otherwise, it just takes you over and you become it. You're unconscious to it. You have collapsed, so to speak. So when your shadow is triggered, it's always focused externally. Because the threat is external. It always was in childhood. In adulthood, when the shadow is triggered, the same thing. The threat is that person, that spouse, that whoever. And so you lose your perspective immediately because your agency now has been given away to the other person and the anger you feel. But if you can recognize your shadow is triggered and then do your own calculations, what level of interaction or reaction is warranted here, you begin to gradually claim your agency over how you feel. And what I would do is I would call a family meeting, so to speak, and I would sit literally on my couch and I would bring the shadow into it, and often my inner child, because the shadow is all about protecting the inner child who might have been hurt, somebody mistreated that vulnerability in you, didn't reciprocate your love, whatever it is. And we'd have a family meeting to where I would let my inner child, its own distinct entity, tell me what it wanted, why it was hurting, what had upset it, and then I'd interact with my shadow. And we would come up with a way to be in the situation together and a response to what was happening. And oftentimes, the best response was, okay, let's remove ourselves from that. Because you'll notice, if you are in a relationship that is triggering your shadow, You're not in a healthy relationship. So just by the shadow being triggered in a relationship is providing you with information. And oftentimes that's, if you're with a narcissist, that's reactive abuse. Your reaction is the result of your shadow being triggered, which is telling you you're not in a healthy relationship if somebody is triggering your shadow. So before I healed my inner child and integrated my animus, and that's a whole other ballpark, the shadow was the easiest thing to work with, because the shadow was like, oh, okay, you do have this. That's a good plan, I agree. And then it would settle back down and kind of be dormant. And another thing you'll notice with the shadow is, even if you don't react to whatever the offending person or party has done to you, the shadow is still active in your own head. And this is so misery making. It's chattering on and on. It's ruminating. It is fighting with the other person in your own head. Like, I'm going to say this next time I see them, and I'm going to do that. And it's just all going on. And how do you shut it off? You got to interact with the shadow to shut it off. Like, I hear you. I'm pissed at this. I see you're pissed at this. Let's look at, does it warrant a response? And you work it out with the shadow. You're upset because the shadow's upset. And when our shadow is triggered, we can lose perspective and just go off the rails. So next time your shadow is triggered, assess the relationship or the person that's triggering it, and assess the level of response the situation demands of you. Now, I did that probably for years, I worked with my shadow, to where now I don't even remember the last time my shadow was triggered. I mean, I can watch the news and you know how triggering that is of late. And my shadow's like, I want to create a meme, or I want to, troll, or do. I let it. Okay, you want to do a little troll today? Well, let's do a little trolling. And I call that shadow play. Because that part of me, it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt another person. But it wants to express itself when it sees an injustice, or it sees somebody being bullied or taken advantage of. And so one little way I've done it is I create some memes, or I do a little trolling online, and that's honest and that's true. So try that, and before you know it, you've got a relationship with your shadow that does not involve you being miserable with it, not knowing what to do, and being taken over by it. So in the meantime, till we see each other again, sweet dreams.